The contractions hit like a sledgehammer to my spine, and I knew this was it. 9 months of carrying my sister's baby, and now he was ready to meet the world. "Lucy! She's crowning!" the nurse called out, and I watched my older sister rush to the side of the hospital bed, her perfectly manicured hands clasped together like she was praying. My name is Eliza, and I thought I was doing the most beautiful thing in the world for the person I loved most. God, was I wrong? "You're doing amazing, Eliza," Lucy whispered, but her eyes weren't on me. They were fixed on the monitor, watching the baby's heartbeat like she was tracking stock prices. Just a few more pushes. Daniel stood behind her, his expensive suit somehow still crisp despite spending the last 12 hours in this sterile room. He had his phone out, recording everything, but the camera wasn't pointed at me. It was angled toward where the baby would emerge. "I can see his head," Dr. Martinez announced. "One more big push, Eliza." I gripped the bed rails and bore down with everything I had. The pain was indescribable, but all I could think about was how happy Lucy would be. How complete their little family would finally become after years of failed IVF treatments and miscarriages. The baby's cry filled the room, sharp and demanding, and I collapsed back against the pillows, exhausted but euphoric. "He's perfect," Dr. Martinez said, holding up this tiny, wrinkled miracle. 10 fingers, 10 toes, healthy lungs. I reached out instinctively, wanting to hold him, but Lucy was already there. The doctor placed him directly into her arms, and she started crying, these soft, grateful tears that made my heart swell. "Thank you," she whispered to me, but she never looked away from the baby. "Thank you so much, Eliza." Daniel moved closer, wrapping his arms around both Lucy and the baby. They looked like a magazine ad for the perfect family. I felt this warm glow spreading through my chest, despite the pain and exhaustion. "What are you going to name him?" I asked, trying to sit up a little. "Amos," Lucy said softly. "Amos Daniel." The nurse came over to check my vitals, and I watched Lucy and Daniel cooing over little Amos. They were so absorbed in him, whispering to each other about his tiny features, his perfect little hands. "The paperwork will be ready in about an hour," Dr. Martinez told them. "Then you can take him to the nursery for his first feeding." That's when something shifted. Lucy's expression changed, became more businesslike. She handed Amos to Daniel and turned to face me fully for the first time since the delivery. "Eliza," she said, her voice different now, colder. "I need you to understand something." I blinked, confused by her tone. "What do you mean?" "This baby is ours now. Mine and Daniel's. We appreciate what you've done, but your part in this is over." The words hit me like ice water. "Lucy, what are you talking about?" Daniel stepped forward, still holding Amos, but his expression had hardened too. "We think it would be best if you maintained some distance going forward, for everyone's sake." "Distance?" I couldn't process what they were saying. "He's my nephew. You're my sister." "No," Lucy said firmly. "He's our son, and you were our surrogate. There's a difference." The nurse looked uncomfortable and quietly slipped out of the room. I felt like I was drowning, like the air had been sucked out of my lungs. "Lucy, I carried him for 9 months. I felt every kick, every hiccup. I gave up law school for this year to—" "And we're grateful," Daniel interrupted. "But we need to establish boundaries now. Clean breaks are better for attachment purposes." I stared at my sister, searching her face for any trace of the woman who used to braid my hair and sneak me cookies before dinner. But her eyes were cold, calculating. "Your services are no longer required," Lucy said, each word precise and cutting. "He's ours now." The room went dead silent except for Amos's soft breathing. I felt something crack inside my chest, something that had been holding my world together. They walked out without another word, taking the baby with them, leaving me alone in that sterile room with the smell of antiseptic and the echo of my sister's betrayal. That's when I knew I had to fight back. I was still staring at the door they'd walked through when it opened again. For a split second, I thought Lucy had come back to apologize, to tell me this was all some horrible misunderstanding. Instead, Daniel walked in alone, carrying a manila envelope. "I almost forgot," he said, like he was delivering takeout. He set the envelope on my bedside table. "Your compensation." I looked at the envelope like it might bite me. "My what?" "The final payment, as agreed in the contract." He straightened his tie. "Lucy wanted me to remind you that the confidentiality clause is still in effect. We'd prefer if you didn't discuss the details of this arrangement with anyone." "Details of this arrangement?" My voice cracked. "Daniel, I'm her sister, and we appreciate the family discount," he said without a trace of irony. "But business is business, Eliza. You provided a service, we're compensating you fairly, and now we all move on with our lives." The door opened again, and my mother rushed in, her face flushed from running down the hospital corridor. "Oh, honey, how are you feeling?" Mom wrapped me in a hug that smelled like her lavender perfume and anxiety. "I got here as fast as I could after Lucy called." "Where is she?" I asked, "Getting Amos settled in the nursery." "She's so happy, Eliza. You've given her such a gift." Mom's eyes were bright with tears. "I'm so proud of you both." Daniel cleared his throat. "I should go check on them. Eliza, thank you again for everything." He paused at the door. "I trust we understand each other about moving forward." After he left, Mom sat on the edge of my bed, still beaming. "I can't believe I'm finally a grandmother. Did you see how tiny his fingers are?" "Mom, did Lucy say anything to you about boundaries?" Her smile flickered. "What do you mean?" "She told me I need to keep my distance, that my part in this is over." Mom's hands twisted in her lap. "Well, honey, you know how new mothers can be. Very protective. I'm sure once she settles in. She called me a surrogate, Mom, like I was hired help. You were technically... I'm her sister." The words exploded out of me. "I didn't do this for money. I did it because I love her." Mom reached for my hand. "I know you did, sweetheart. And Lucy knows that too. She's just overwhelmed right now. Give her some time." "Time for what? To pretend I don't exist?" "Don't be dramatic, Eliza. You're family. That will never change." But something in her voice told me she wasn't entirely convinced either. After Mom left to give Lucy some support, I was alone again. I picked up the envelope Daniel had left, my hands shaking. Inside was a check for $25,000 and a typed note on Lucy's personal stationery. "Eliza, thank you for your sacrifice. This should help you get back on your feet and return to law school. Please respect our need for space as we bond with our son. Our son, not the baby or Amos. Our son." I grabbed my phone and called Iris, my best friend since college. She answered on the first ring. "Eliza, how did it go? Is the baby okay?" "Iris, I need you to come to the hospital. Now." "What's wrong? Are you hurt?" "Just, please, room 314. And don't tell anyone you're coming." She arrived 40 minutes later with coffee and that concerned look she got when she knew I was about to fall apart. I told her everything: Lucy's cold dismissal, Daniel's business transaction speech, the check, the note. "They paid you off," Iris said flatly, "like you were some kind of service provider." "That's exactly what they did." "And your mom?" "Thinks I'm being dramatic. That Lucy just needs time to adjust." Iris set down her coffee and looked at me hard. "Eliza, what aren't you telling me?" I hesitated. During the pregnancy, there had been moments, small things that seemed off at the time, but that I'd dismissed. Lucy's comments about keeping things professional. Daniel's insistence on handling all the medical appointments himself. The way they'd both reacted when I'd mentioned wanting to babysit sometimes. There were signs, I admitted. Things they said during the pregnancy. I thought I was being paranoid. What kind of things? Lucy asked me once if I was getting too attached. When I said I loved feeling him move, she got this look on her face, like I'd said something inappropriate. Iris's jaw tightened. What else? Daniel made a joke about me being their rental womb. I laughed it off, but Lucy didn't correct him. She just smiled. Jesus, Eliza. And last month, when I suggested we should start thinking about how often I'd see him after he was born, Lucy said we'd cross that bridge when we came to it. But she wouldn't look at me when she said it. Iris stood up and started pacing. They planned this. They knew from the beginning they were going to cut you out. I think so. What are you going to do? I looked at the check again, at Lucy's neat handwriting dismissing 9 months of my life like a business transaction. I'm going to fight back. 2 days later, I was sitting in Iris's living room, still sore from delivery but determined. Her partner Rowan was there too, looking through a stack of papers with the focused intensity that made him such a good attorney. Tell me again about the contract signing, Iris said, refilling my tea. Every detail you can remember. I closed my eyes, thinking back to that day 6 months ago. We met at Penelope's office. She's been the family lawyer forever, handled my parents' wills, Lucy's house purchase, everything. And Penelope reviewed the surrogacy agreement? Rowan asked without looking up. She was supposed to, but her assistant had just quit, and she was juggling 3 other cases. She kept getting interrupted by phone calls. Iris leaned forward. What kind of interruptions? Her biggest client was having some crisis. She must have taken 5 calls during our meeting. Each time she'd put us on hold and step out of the room. So she was distracted, Rowan said. Completely. At one point, she came back from a call and couldn't even remember which clause we'd been discussing. Rowan finally looked up. And you had the contract beforehand? To review? This was the part I'd been dreading to admit. Lucy gave me a copy 3 days before the signing. Said I should look it over, make sure I was comfortable with everything. And? I took a deep breath. I made some changes. Iris nearly choked on her coffee. What kind of changes? Small ones. I was in my 3rd year of law school before I took leave, remember? I know how to read contracts. Rowan set down the papers. Eliza, what exactly did you change? There was a clause about parental rights termination. The original version said my rights would be automatically terminated upon birth. I modified it. How? I changed it to say my rights would be terminated upon completion of all legal documentation and a mandatory 7-day waiting period. The room went dead silent. You changed the contract and didn't tell them? Iris asked. I was protecting myself. Something felt off about how eager they were to rush through everything. Lucy kept pushing to sign earlier, to get it finalized as quickly as possible. Rowan was staring at me like I'd grown a second head. Did you initial the changes? Yes, and I made sure the new version was what got signed. But Penelope didn't catch it. She was on another call when we got to that section. She just flipped through, saw our signatures, and notarized it. Iris started laughing. Not happy laughter, but the kind that comes when something is so unbelievable you can't process it any other way. So legally speaking, Rowan said slowly, you're still the mother. For now. Until the 7-day period expires and all the documentation is filed. When does the 7 days end? I checked my phone. Tomorrow at 3 p.m. Rowan jumped up and started pacing. We need to see this contract. Now. I have a copy in my apartment. No, we need the signed original, the one that's filed. I pulled out my phone and scrolled to Lucy's contact. My finger hovered over her name. I can't just ask her for it. She'll know something's up. What about Penelope? Iris suggested. She'd have to give it to me if I requested it, right? I looked at Rowan. Client privilege? You're all clients on this contract. She'd have to provide a copy to any party who requests it. I dialed Penelope's office. her new assistant answered. "Hi, this is Eliza. I need a copy of the surrogacy agreement I signed last month. Can I pick it up today? Let me check with Ms. Anderson. Can you hold?" The hold music felt like it lasted forever. Finally, the assistant came back. "She says you can pick it up any time before 5. Do you need it notarized or certified?" "Just a regular copy is fine." After I hung up, Rowan was already grabbing his keys. "We're going now," he said. All of us. An hour later, we were back in Iris's living room. Rowan had the contract spread across the coffee table, a yellow highlighter in his hand. "Here," he said, pointing to a section near the bottom. Clause 12b. Biological mother's parental rights shall be terminated upon completion of all legal documentation and a mandatory 7-day waiting period following birth. "And they signed this version?" Iris asked. "Both of them. Look." I pointed to Lucy and Daniel's signatures at the bottom. Rowan sat back in his chair, running his hands through his hair. "Eliza, do you understand what this means? That I still have legal rights to Amos? More than that, until tomorrow at 3 p.m., you are legally his mother. Not Lucy. You." My phone buzzed with a text from Lucy. "Family group chat. Bringing our sweet boy home tomorrow. Can't wait to start our new life as a family of 3. I showed the message to Iris and Rowan. "Over my dead body," I said. "We need to file an emergency injunction," Rowan said, already pulling out his laptop. "Today? Before they try to take him home." "What does that mean exactly?" I asked. "It means we go to court and ask a judge to prevent them from removing Amos from the hospital until this gets sorted out." Iris was reading over the contract again. "But won't they just argue that Eliza is being vindictive? That she's trying to steal their baby? That's why we need to move fast and smart," Rowan said, typing rapidly. "We're not claiming Eliza wants to keep the baby permanently. We're just saying the legal process wasn't completed properly." My phone rang. Lucy's name flashed on the screen. "Don't answer it," Rowan said immediately. "But what if—" "Don't. Answer. It." The call went to voicemail. Then it rang again, and again. "She knows something's wrong," I said. "Good. Let her sweat." 3 hours later, we were standing in the courthouse. Rowan had filed the emergency petition, and we were waiting to see if a judge would hear us. "Ms. Walton?" A clerk appeared. "Judge Martinez will see you in chambers in 5 minutes." "Different Martinez than the doctor?" I asked Rowan. "Different Martinez. And lucky for us, she's known for being thorough." Judge Martinez was a small woman with sharp eyes and graying hair pulled back in a tight bun. She looked like she'd seen every kind of family drama imaginable and had no patience for nonsense. "Mr. Simmons," she said to Rowan, "explain to me why I should prevent these people from taking home their baby." "Your Honor, the surrogacy agreement clearly states that parental rights don't transfer until all legal documentation is complete and a 7-day waiting period has elapsed. That period doesn't end until tomorrow at 3 p.m. She flipped through the contract. "And the respondents signed this version?" "Yes, Your Honor. Both parties." "Ms. Walton," Judge Martinez turned to me. "What is it you're asking for here? Do you want to keep this child?" The question hit me like a punch to the gut. Did I want to keep Amos? I'd carried him for 9 months, felt every kick, every movement. But I'd also agreed to give him to Lucy and Daniel. "I want them to follow the law, Your Honor, and I want to be treated with respect, not discarded like I was nothing." That's not really an answer to my question. I took a deep breath. I don't know yet. But I deserve the legal right to make that decision during the time period I'm entitled to. Judge Martinez nodded slowly. "I'm granting a temporary restraining order. The child remains at the hospital until we can have a full hearing. I'm scheduling that for Friday morning." As we walked out of the courthouse, my phone was buzzing nonstop. Missed calls from Lucy, Daniel, Mom, even Dad. "Turn it off," Rowan advised. "Let them go through your attorney now." "You're my attorney?" "As of right now, yes." We drove straight to the hospital. At the nurse's station, I could see Lucy and Daniel through the nursery window. Lucy was holding Amos, and Daniel was pacing back and forth, clearly agitated. "Ms. Walton?" The head nurse approached us. "We received the court order. The baby cannot be discharged until further notice." "Thank you." Lucy must have seen me through the window because she came storming out of the nursery, her face flushed with anger. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" she hissed. "Following the contract we all signed. This is insane, Eliza. He's our baby." "Actually," Rowan stepped forward, "legally speaking, he's not. Not until tomorrow at 3 p.m. at the earliest." Daniel joined us, his jaw clenched. "Who is this?" "My attorney." "Your attorney?" Daniel laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. "You hired a lawyer? Against your own sister?" "You treated me like hired help, so I'm acting like it." Lucy's eyes filled with tears. "Eliza, please, don't do this. You're going to ruin everything." "I'm not ruining anything. I'm protecting my rights." "Your rights?" Daniel's voice was getting louder. "You have no rights. You were a surrogate." "Keep your voice down," a nurse warned. "This is a hospital." Mom appeared at the end of the hallway, looking frantic. "What's going on?" "Lucy called me crying, saying something about lawyers and courts." "Ask your other daughter," Lucy said bitterly. "She's trying to steal our baby." "I'm not stealing anything," I said. "I'm making sure the legal process is followed correctly." Mom looked between us, confused and upset. "Can't you two work this out? You're sisters." "Tell that to Lucy," I said. "She's the one who decided I was just a service provider." "That's not what Your services are no longer required," I quoted back to her. "He's ours now. Ring any bells?" Lucy's face went white. Daniel put his arm around her shoulders. "We need to call our lawyer," he said. "Good idea," Rowan replied. "Have them call me." As they walked away, Mom stayed behind, looking at me with disappointment. "Eliza, honey, what are you really trying to accomplish here?" "Justice, Mom, and maybe a little respect." "At what cost?" I looked through the nursery window at Amos, sleeping peacefully in his bassinet, completely unaware that his entire world was about to change. I guess we'll find out. By Thursday morning, the story had leaked. I woke up to 17 missed calls and a text from my cousin Sarah. "Is it true you're suing Lucy for the baby? It's all over Facebook." I called Rowan immediately. "How did this get out?" "Could be anyone. Court filings are public record, or maybe someone at the hospital talked." My phone rang. Unknown number. "Don't answer," Rowan said. "Probably a reporter." "A reporter?" Local custody battles involving surrogacy make good headlines, especially when it's family. I ignored the call, but then my phone buzzed with a text from Daniel. "We need to talk. Meet me at Starbucks on 5th Street. 1 hour. Come alone." "Absolutely not," Iris said when I showed her the message. "That sounds like a threat." "Or a bribe," Rowan added. "Don't go." But something in Daniel's tone made me curious. What if he wants to apologize? To work something out? Then he can do it through lawyers. I went anyway. Daniel was already there when I arrived, sitting in a corner booth with his back to the wall. He looked like he hadn't slept. "Thank you for coming," he said as I sat down. "What do you want, Daniel?" He slid an envelope across the table. $50,000. Cash. You drop the legal action, we all move on. I didn't touch the envelope. "You think you can buy me off?" "I think you're a smart woman who understands that this situation benefits no one. Lucy is falling apart. Your parents are devastated. And that baby needs stability, not a custody battle." "That baby has a name. Amos." Daniel's jaw tightened. "Don't get attached, Eliza. You're not keeping him." "Maybe not, but that's my decision to make." "Is it really? Or are you just trying to hurt Lucy because you're jealous?" The accusation hit like a slap. Jealous of what? Her success, her marriage, her life. You've always been in her shadow, and now you see a chance to destroy what she's built. I stood up. You don't know anything about me. I know you dropped out of law school. I know you're 29 and single with no real career prospects. I know you agreed to be our surrogate because you needed the money and the purpose. Each word was calculated to wound. You're wrong. Am I? Take the money, Eliza. Start over somewhere else. Lucy and I will make sure Amos has a good life. Like you made sure I'd have a good relationship with him? Daniel leaned back. We never promised you anything beyond what was in the contract. The contract you clearly didn't read carefully enough. His face darkened. That was a mistake. One we're going to fix. What's that supposed to mean? It means we have resources you don't. Lawyers, money, connections. You think one little clause is going to stand up against all of that? I grabbed the envelope and threw it back at him. Keep your money. As I walked out, I heard him call after me. This isn't over, Eliza. I drove straight to Rowan's office, my hands shaking. He listened to my account of the meeting, taking notes. He threatened you, Rowan said. That was incredibly stupid of him. What do you mean? Did you record the conversation? No, but I stopped. Wait, yes, I did. I pulled out my phone. I have a voice memo app that I accidentally turned on when I was trying to silence my phone. Rowan's eyes lit up. Play it. We listened to the entire conversation. Daniel's voice came through clearly. The bribe attempt, the personal attacks, the veiled threats. This is gold, Rowan said. We're adding this to our evidence file. That evening, I was at my parents' house for what Mom had called an emergency family meeting. Dad was pacing the living room while Mom sat on the couch, wringing her hands. This has gone too far, Mom said as soon as I walked in. The whole town is talking about it. Let them talk, Dad said. Eliza's doing what she has to do. She's destroying the family, Travis. Lucy destroyed the family when she treated our daughter like a broodmare. Mom started crying. I just want my girls to love each other again. That ship sailed when Lucy decided I was disposable, I said. You don't mean that. Before I could answer, the doorbell rang. Dad went to answer it, and I heard Penelope's voice in the hallway. I need to speak with Eliza, she said, sounding agitated. It's about the contract. We all gathered in the living room. Penelope looked nervous, clutching a briefcase. I made a mistake, she said without preamble. A big one. What kind of mistake? I asked. I should have caught your changes to the contract, but I was distracted, and I didn't review it properly before the signing. Okay. But that's not the worst part. She opened her briefcase and pulled out a folder. I've been going through my files, and I found something troubling. She handed me a document. It was a copy of the original surrogacy agreement, the one Lucy had given me to review. Look at the signature page, Penelope said. I flipped to the back and felt my blood run cold. There were already signatures on it. Lucy's and Daniel's, dated 3 days before our meeting. They signed the original version before you ever saw it, Penelope said, which means they never intended for me to have any input, I finished. They were just going through the motions. Dad exploded. Those lying, manipulative— There's more, Penelope interrupted. Daniel called me yesterday. He wanted to know if there was any way to invalidate the contract you actually signed. When I told him no, he asked about other options. What kind of options? He wanted to know if we could claim you were mentally unstable, that the pregnancy hormones affected your judgment. The room went dead silent. He what? Mom whispered. I told him absolutely not. But Eliza, you need to know. They're not going to give up easily. I looked at the pre-signed contract in my hands, evidence of their deception from the very beginning. Neither am I. Friday morning arrived with a media circus outside the courthouse. 3 news vans were parked on the street, and I could see reporters with cameras waiting by the entrance. Local news picked it up, Rowan explained as we walked through the back entrance. Sister versus sister custody battle. It's catnip for them. Inside, Lucy and Daniel were already seated with their attorney, a sharp-looking woman in an expensive suit who I recognized from billboards around town. Margaret something. She handled high-profile divorces and corporate disputes. Lucy looked terrible. Her usually perfect hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail, and she had dark circles under her eyes. When she saw me, her expression hardened. "All rise," the bailiff announced. The Honorable Judge Martinez presiding. Judge Martinez took her seat and surveyed the packed courtroom. "This is a custody hearing, not a circus. Anyone who disrupts these proceedings will be removed." Margaret stood first. "Your Honor, my clients are the intended parents in a straightforward surrogacy arrangement. Ms. Walton is attempting to manipulate a minor clerical error to steal their child." "Objection to the characterization," Rowan said. "The contract modification was not clerical. It was deliberate and legally binding." "Noted. Ms. Margaret, present your case." Margaret called Daniel to the stand first. He looked composed, professional in his navy suit. "Mr. Hayes, please describe your relationship with the respondent." "Eliza is my sister-in-law. When my wife Lucy couldn't conceive, Eliza generously offered to be our surrogate." "And what was your understanding of the arrangement?" "That she would carry our child, and then we would raise him as our son. It was always meant to be temporary." "Did you have any indication that Ms. Walton intended to keep the baby?" Daniel paused, glancing at me. "Not initially, but during the pregnancy, she became increasingly possessive." "Can you give an example?" "She started referring to the baby as her baby. She wanted to be involved in naming decisions. She talked about babysitting and being a big part of his life." I watched Lucy nod along, her face a mask of wounded innocence. "And how did you respond to these concerns?" "We tried to be gentle but firm about boundaries. We didn't want to hurt her feelings, but we needed her to understand that this was our child." Rowan stood for cross-examination. "Mr. Hayes, did you and your wife sign the original surrogacy contract before Ms. Walton ever saw it?" Daniel shifted uncomfortably. "I don't recall the exact timeline. Let me refresh your memory." Rowan held up the pre-signed document. "This is the original contract, dated 3 days before your meeting with Ms. Walton. Are these your signatures?" "We may have signed a preliminary version." "Yes or no, Mr. Hayes? Are these your signatures?" "Yes." "So you had already committed to terms before allowing Ms. Walton to review the agreement?" "We were eager to move forward." "Eager enough to deceive your sister-in-law about having input in the process?" Margaret objected, but the damage was done. The courtroom murmured, and I saw several people shaking their heads. Lucy took the stand next. She was crying before she even sat down. "Mrs. Hayes, how has this situation affected you?" "It's been devastating," Lucy sobbed. "I've wanted to be a mother for so long. We've been through years of failed treatments, miscarriages. When Eliza offered to help, I thought it was a miracle. And now I'm terrified I'll never get to hold my son again. Eliza is using him as a weapon to hurt me." "Why do you think she's doing this?" Lucy looked directly at me. "Because she's always resented my success, my marriage, my happiness. This is her way of destroying everything I've worked for." The accusation hung in the air like poison. I felt every eye in the courtroom on me. When Rowan cross-examined Lucy, he was gentler, but no less effective. "Mrs. Hayes, what exactly did you say to your sister immediately after the birth?" "I thanked her for the gift she'd given us." "Is that all you said?" Lucy hesitated. "I may have mentioned that we needed to establish boundaries." "Your exact words, please." "I don't remember exactly. Let me help you." Rowan pulled out his phone. "I have a recording of a conversation between Ms. Walton and her friend, where she recounted your words immediately after the birth. Would you like me to play it?" Lucy's face went white. That's not. Your services are no longer required. He's ours now. Rowan's voice was clear and cold. Do those words sound familiar? The courtroom erupted. Judge Martinez banged her gavel. Order! I will have order! Margaret was whispering frantically to Lucy and Daniel. I could see panic in their eyes. Finally, it was my turn to testify. I walked to the stand on shaking legs, acutely aware of the cameras in the back of the room. Ms. Walton, Rowan began, why did you agree to be a surrogate for your sister? Because I love her. Because I wanted to help her become a mother. And what did you expect your relationship with the child to be? I expected to be his aunt, to be part of his life, to watch him grow up and know that I helped bring him into the world. When did that expectation change? I looked at Lucy, who was staring at her hands. The moment he was born, when Lucy looked me in the eye and told me I was no longer needed. How did that make you feel? Like I'd been used. Like 9 months of my life, of carrying her child, of sacrificing my body and my education, meant nothing to her. Do you want to keep the baby, Ms. Walton? The question I'd been dreading. The entire courtroom held its breath. I want what's best for Amos. But I also want to be treated like a human being, not a rental womb. And I want Lucy and Daniel to be held accountable for their lies. Judge Martinez called a recess. As we filed out, I heard Lucy crying in the hallway. This is all your fault, she was saying to Daniel. I told you we should have been nicer to her. It's too late for that now, he replied grimly. I realized he was right. Whatever happened next, there was no going back. After the recess, Judge Martinez returned with a stern expression. The courtroom was packed tighter than before. Word had spread, and I could see neighbors, extended family members, and people I didn't even recognize filling the seats. Before I render my decision, Judge Martinez said, I want to address some additional evidence that has come to light. Margaret looked confused. Your Honor, we weren't informed of any new evidence. Mr. Simmons brought it to my attention during the recess. Judge Martinez held up a folder. It appears there are some irregularities in the documentation filed with this court. Daniel went rigid in his seat. Lucy grabbed his arm. Mr. Hayes, did you or did you not attempt to file amended birth certificate paperwork yesterday without Ms. Walton's knowledge or consent? The question hit like a bomb. Margaret was frantically whispering to Daniel, but he looked like a deer in headlights. Your Honor, I'm not sure what you're referring to. I have the filing right here. Submitted yesterday at 4:47 p.m. It lists you and your wife as the sole legal parents, with no mention of the surrogacy arrangement or the pending custody issue. The courtroom erupted in whispers. I stared at Daniel in shock. He'd tried to make himself Amos's legal father while we were in court fighting over custody. That's fraud, Rowan said, standing up. Attempted fraud of the court system. Margaret was on her feet. Your Honor, if my client filed paperwork, it was surely an administrative error that would have given your clients legal custody while this case was pending? Judge Martinez's voice was ice cold. Mr. Hayes, stand up. Daniel rose slowly, his face ashen. Did you think I wouldn't find out? Did you think you could manipulate the system while asking this court to grant you custody? Your Honor, I was just trying to protect my family by committing fraud. Lucy started crying again, but these weren't the composed tears from her testimony. These were desperate, panicked sobs. I didn't know, she kept saying. I didn't know he did that. Judge Martinez turned to me. Ms. Walton, in light of this new information, I need to ask you directly. What outcome are you seeking here? The entire courtroom fell silent. This was it, the moment everything had been building toward. I stood up slowly. Your Honor, I want joint custody. The word surprised even me. I hadn't planned to say that. Joint custody? Judge Martinez repeated. Yes. I carried Amos for 9 months. I felt every kick, every movement. I gave up a year of my life, my education, my body to bring him into this world. I'm not trying to steal him from Lucy and Daniel, but I'm not going to be erased from his life either. Lucy's sobs got louder. No, 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 he's my baby. My baby. He's both of ours, I said, looking directly at her. Whether you like it or not. Margaret was shaking her head. Your Honor, this is highly irregular. Surrogates don't typically retain parental rights. Surrogates typically don't get treated like disposable incubators either, Rowan interrupted. And their intended parents don't typically commit fraud. Judge Martinez held up her hand for silence. I've heard enough. This case presents several troubling elements: deception in the contract process, attempted fraud of the court system, and a clear breakdown in family relationships. She paused, looking at each of us in turn. However, at the center of all this is a newborn child who deserves stability and love. Mr. Hayes, your attempted filing of fraudulent documents is deeply concerning and will be referred to the district attorney's office for review. Daniel's face went white. Margaret grabbed his arm. Mrs. Hayes, while I understand your desire to be a mother, your treatment of your sister was callous and legally problematic. Lucy was still crying, but quieter now. Ms. Walton, your modification of the contract, while legally valid, shows a level of distrust that suggests this arrangement was problematic from the beginning. I held my breath. Therefore, I am granting temporary joint custody. Ms. Walton will have visitation rights and input on major decisions regarding the child's welfare. This arrangement will be reviewed in 6 months to determine if it should be made permanent. The courtroom exploded. Lucy screamed, "No!" and collapsed into Daniel's arms. Margaret was already gathering her papers, clearly planning an appeal. Furthermore, Judge Martinez continued over the noise, I am ordering family mediation for all parties. This child deserves better than a family torn apart by greed and manipulation. As the gavel came down, I felt a strange mix of victory and devastation. I'd won, but at what cost? Lucy was being helped out of the courtroom, still sobbing. As she passed my row, she stopped and looked at me with pure hatred. I will never forgive you for this, she whispered. Never. Daniel paused too, his face cold and calculating. This isn't over, Eliza. We'll appeal. We'll fight this until we win. Good luck with that fraud charge, I replied. After they left, the courtroom slowly emptied. Mom and Dad approached me, their faces showing the strain of the last week. Are you happy now? Mom asked quietly. I'm not sure happy is the right word. Dad put his arm around me. You did what you had to do, sweetheart. Did I? Or did I just destroy our family over pride? Lucy destroyed this family the moment she decided you were disposable, Dad said firmly. You just refused to stay disposed of. Rowan was packing up his briefcase. The fraud investigation will take a few weeks. Daniel could face criminal charges. What does that mean for custody? It strengthens your position significantly. Courts don't look kindly on parents who try to manipulate the system. As we walked out of the courthouse, reporters shouted questions at me. I ignored them all, but I could hear the headlines already forming. Sister wins custody. Battle against surrogate family. Surrogacy gone wrong. Family torn apart. That evening, I sat in the hospital nursery, holding Amos for the first time since his birth. He was so small, so perfect, completely unaware that his entire world had just been turned upside down. What have I done to you, little guy? I whispered. A nurse approached. Ms. Walton, your sister is here. She's asking to see the baby. I looked up to see Lucy standing in the doorway, her eyes red and swollen from crying. For a moment, we just stared at each other across the room that had become our battlefield. Can we talk? She asked quietly. I nodded, still holding Amos. I think we need to. Lucy sat down in the chair across from me, her hands trembling. The nursery was quiet except for the soft beeping of monitors and Amos's gentle breathing. "He's beautiful," she whispered, staring at the baby in my arms. "He is." I've been awake for 3 days straight, just thinking about what I said to you, what we did to you. I didn't respond. I wasn't ready to make this easy for her. "Daniel's been arrested," she continued. "The fraud charges. His law firm suspended him pending investigation. I'm sorry. Are you?" I looked at her directly. "I'm sorry your husband is an idiot who thought he could outsmart the legal system. I'm not sorry he got caught." Lucy's face crumpled. "Everything's falling apart, Eliza. The partners at Daniel's firm are talking about termination. My friends won't return my calls. Mom won't even look at me. Maybe you should have thought about that before you decided I was disposable. I know. I know I was horrible to you." She leaned forward, but I was so scared. Scared of what? Of losing him. Of you changing your mind. Of not being enough. Her voice broke. "I've wanted to be a mother for so long, and when it finally happened, I panicked. I thought if I pushed you away immediately, it would be easier. Cleaner. Cleaner for who? For me. For us. For everyone." She wiped her eyes. "I was wrong. I was so wrong." Amos stirred in my arms, making a soft sound. Both Lucy and I looked down at him. "He has your nose," I said quietly. "And your stubborn chin," Lucy replied with a watery smile. We sat in silence for a moment, both watching the baby sleep. "What happens now?" Lucy asked. "I don't know. The court ordered mediation. We have to figure out how to co-parent." "Do you really want that? Joint custody?" I looked at Amos, then at my sister. "I want him to know where he came from. I want him to understand that he was wanted by all of us, not just you and Daniel. And I want you to remember that family isn't disposable." Lucy nodded, tears streaming down her face. "Can you ever forgive me?" "I don't know yet, but I'm willing to try." The nursery door opened and Mom walked in, looking exhausted. "The nurse said you were both here." She looked between us uncertainly. "How are we doing?" "We're talking," I said. "That's more than you've done in a week." Mom sat down heavily. "This whole situation has been a nightmare." "It didn't have to be," Lucy said quietly. "If I hadn't been so selfish, if you hadn't been so scared," I corrected. "There's a difference." Mom looked surprised. "You're defending her?" "I'm trying to understand her. There's a difference there, too." Dad appeared in the doorway, followed by Iris. The small nursery was getting crowded. "How's our boy doing?" Dad asked, his voice gentle. "He's perfect," Lucy and I said at the same time, then looked at each other in surprise. "Well, that's something," Iris said dryly. A nurse approached our group. "I'm sorry, but we can only have 2 visitors at a time in the nursery." "I'll go," Lucy said, standing up. "Eliza should have time with him." "Lucy, wait." I stood up too, still holding Amos. "Do you want to hold him?" Her face lit up with desperate hope. "Can I?" I carefully transferred Amos to her arms. She held him like he was made of glass, tears falling onto his blanket. "Hi, baby boy," she whispered. "Mommy's here. Both your mommies are here." The words hit me like a punch to the chest, but not in a bad way. For the first time since this whole mess started, something felt right. "We need ground rules," I said, "if we're going to make this work." Lucy nodded eagerly. "Whatever you want. No more lies. No more manipulation. No more treating me like hired help. Never again. I promise. And Daniel needs to get his act together. I won't have Amos around someone who thinks fraud is an acceptable problem-solving technique. He's getting counseling and anger management. The arrest was a wake-up call." Dad cleared his throat. "What about the media circus? This whole thing's been on the news." "Let them talk," I said. "We know the truth now. That's what matters." Iris stepped forward. "For what it's worth, I think you're both doing the right thing. Amos is lucky to have people who love him this much." Even if we're terrible at showing it sometimes, Lucy added ruefully. Mom stood up and hugged both of us, careful not to disturb the baby. My girls, my stubborn, complicated, impossible girls. We get it from you, I said. You get it from your father, Mom replied, making Dad laugh. As the sun set outside the nursery windows, we took turns holding Amos, talking quietly about schedules and arrangements and the future. It wasn't perfect. There was still hurt and anger and a long road ahead of us. But it was a start. Eliza, Lucy said as we prepared to leave, thank you. For what? For fighting for him. For all of us. Even when we didn't deserve it. I looked at my sister, really looked at her, and saw something I hadn't seen in years. The Lucy who used to braid my hair and sneak me cookies. She was still there, underneath all the fear and desperation. That's what family does, I said. We fight for each other, even when we're fighting with each other. Especially then, Dad added. As we walked out of the hospital together, I realized that sometimes the best revenge isn't destroying someone. It's refusing to let them destroy you. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, it's finding a way to save them too. Amos was going home with all of us. Messy, complicated, imperfect us. And maybe that was exactly how it was supposed to be.